I'm a huge motivator. I love taking somebody who's struggling and pulling them to the side and asking them, like, what are you trying to achieve? What do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then helping to lay out a path for them to take their journey. I mean, we're all on the same road. We're just at different places. We're all going there. I'm not above or below. I'm right with you. I may be a few steps behind you or a few steps in front of you, but I'm with you.
Hello, everybody. It's Ed O'Keefe, and welcome to another episode of the Ed O'Keefe Show, going behind the scenes of greatness. I have a very special guest today, Mr. Tony Grebmeier. Tony's been a friend of mine for going a little over a year. We had met through this health supplement business. He runs a company called Ship Offers. Ship Offers is a company that provides other businesses like mine and other, you'll see it like at GNC, people who, they're a private labeling company and formulation company for health supplements. But that's not what we talked about. Tony's story is absolutely fascinating. He went from making millions to drug addiction to getting sober, ensuring his family unit stayed together, and now he's been sober for many years. And so we talked a little bit about addiction and the disease and overcoming it, but also how it the phase in his life actually led him to it. So anyhow, you'll see and hear this was something different. So we did what's kind of like a power talk where we interviewed each other, and he'll use for his podcast and I use for mine, because we wanted to interview each other. So you'll hear also some behind the scenes that I share with Camp, my prep work, my mindset, my goals while being there. Camp is the Navy SEAL Hell Week that I've talked about, that SEAL Fit put together. And yeah, so we just kind of bounce back and forth. It's kind of like being behind the scenes with us, which is the whole point. So anyhow, enjoy this podcast. I appreciate you. Please subscribe and share this so that we can get the message out and transform lives one person at a time. Now, everybody, Mr. Tony Grebmeier. Hey, Tony, what's up, man?
Hey, Ed, how are you?
Dude, I'm stoked. We're doing something pretty exciting today, I think, for both of us.
A dual podcast. It's not something I hear every day.
I was thinking of you in the shower. I was like, well, because I wanted to interview you, and I know we were scheduled today to interview me, and I was thinking, how do we just bang this out so we because we talked for 20 minutes before we even jumped on this. We started recording, and I was thinking to myself when we talked, I was like, man, some of this stuff should just be recorded because it's so natural and good,
No, I love it, and I think the opportunity, as launching a podcast and being a business owner myself, I've had a lot of audience goes, so tell me a little bit of backstory about where you come from and what you do, because all I'm doing is interviewing entrepreneurs. And so I thought, hey, when you mentioned that, I'm like, hey, that'll serve that purpose. Now I get to interview Ed, and we both get great content for our audiences, and we get to share kind of insight about kind of life and what we're doing and how we do business. So it's
totally.
awesome.
Totally, man. So with that said, let's let me lead by asking you. I know you are one of the founders of Ship Offers, who we use as a company. We've been around each other, you and I, many times, and we get along very well. But we were just talking off camera, even though we're not on camera, about how we both really work at spending as little time away from the family as possible, which the only downside of that is sometimes when at meetings or seminars or masterminds, you just don't get to go as deep with some of the relationships as I'd like. I don't know how you feel about that. So we've sat and talked for time, but we've never really gone into your backstory. So why don't you give myself and the listeners the rundown, buddy?
Perfect. I love it. Thanks. Interesting dialogue, because for me, I'm 43 years old and made my first millions around 26, 27. And what I realized, it was all about me. I grew up pretty selfish, self-centered. I had to learn very early on in my life that I kind of had the philosophy was if it was going to happen, it was up to me. And I got into some drugs and alcohol and got into an addiction, and I had some surgeries on my knee in my early kind of 30s. And before you know it, drugs and alcohol kind of took over my life. And it really literally took me until 2008 to kind of hit my bottom. And the whole time I'm running Ship Offers, a business with two business partners that are my childhood best friends, being married, having kids, like in the midst of like separation from my wife. Anything and everything was possibly going right, but also at the same time was going wrong. And then literally when I ended up making the decision to call a friend, it ultimately changed my life. And he took me to a meeting, and I got a chance to hear my disease speak to me through others. And right then and there, something changed. The obsession to drink and use drugs kind of slowly disappeared. But what became apparent was, in the beginning of this, I said I was selfish. And now I'm no longer wanting to be that guy, and I want to be of service. I want to help the entrepreneur. I want to help the young person who's struggling today with making decisions. I want to give to people what I had given to me, and through life experience, I've been able to now into my 8th year of kind of, sobriety. That's what I'm walking into this year, being drug free and clean and clear headed, an opportunity to help others. So my backstory is, man, I've got 2 amazing kids, an incredible wife of 17 years. I said like we had filed and been separated, we reconciled. Everything's good, it's solid, it's better than it's ever been. I've got challenges like every person with family business, and we're going to talk about, being away and coming back home and trying to, go to an event, be present at the event, but remember you've got a family miles away that needs you and love you and want you to be there as well, and kind of how that whole balancing act works. So yeah, that's my backstory in a nutshell.
Yeah,
I've got an incredible mom who inspires me every single day to never quit. She was the person who I modeled myself after as a young child. She held 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table, came from a divorced family. I mean, I've got a unique background, and I lost my dad just a couple of years ago to dementia and Alzheimer's, and I've got a sister who is there every step of the way with me as well. So family's important. Addiction and helping other people with where they're at in life and where they want to go is a huge, just like an opportunity for me and a goal. And every day I'm inspired by people. And that's my backstory. I mean, in a nutshell, other than running a supplement company full time, that's my life.
Yeah, man. Well, so just for clarification, so how long were you? I don't know what the right, not sober, I guess. So how long were you dealing with, I don't know how old you are. So
Sure, I'm 43. So my biggest problem was this, and if the audience member is listening and this is you, man, I want to speak directly to you. The problem with me is that when I put drugs and alcohol into my body actually rejects it. And I didn't realize that early on. Last night I was sitting with my wife and some friends, and we were kind of talking about the disease, and we were talking about, I literally can't remember. My wife says she's only seen me sick 3 times, outside of a car or doing, just throwing up in bushes. But I'm like, when I start talking about it, man, I can't remember any time that I never picked up and just tried to get as drunk as I could as fast as I could because I hated the way I felt inside.
Wow. So we'll come back. I have a few specific questions I would love to ask a little bit later, but I have to ask just out of curiosity. Heroin is very big in the news now because of the pain people who were on pain meds. They get the pharmaceutical grade whatever, and obviously then their insurance runs out or they get taken off that. And the solution, in fact, Ed Clay just came to mind. I'm going to bring him up in a minute. And there's really no transition for people who are in pain to come off the meds, so they're finding heroin. And this is becoming a accelerating problem, especially in the suburbs and amongst people well, I shouldn't even say who have money and who don't. I think it's across the board.
Well, the one thing I learned real quick, drugs don't care who you are or where you come from. The minute you get something like a substance in your body and your body starts craving it, but ultimately is rejecting it, it doesn't care if you're black, white, green, purple, pink. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It just takes from you. That's what I've learned on my journey. I've seen it hurt from millions of people and been around a lot of people. I was at a meeting today, and you just hear what it does to life and people and families. And I was out with somebody today who's done heroin. So my hardest thing would probably be, all the drugs that you could get from a pharmacist. That was what I was at. It didn't matter if it brought me down or brought me up. I would get a prescription for something, it would run out. I'm like, didn't do anything. And then I'd say, hey, I've got some more knee pain. They'd give me more. My thing was I could always figure out a way to finagle. I was good. And one of my first amends I ever did was I went back to the pharmacist. And I said, hey, I want to be real with you. Like, I manipulated and lied, and I did some bad stuff. And then I went to my doctor. I mean, that was kind of my process of kind of healing myself. Is like I had to physically go back to the people that I harmed, and I still have people on my list that I'm working through. And that's me. So go back to your drug story. Sorry for that.
No, there wasn't. I was just I was curious if that was that was related in your thoughts. Was there a moment now? So I'll share a story. And I'm going to have to ask my brother for permission before I share this. And I think he'll say yes because he's been sober now for over 20 plus years. But as a little kid, I remember one of my brothers, and I have 8 brothers and 4 sisters, coming in the house. I knew something was wrong. My oldest brother, Jake, was over 10 minutes later. And then my one brother and my brother Jake left. My sister-in-law came in and then explained to us what alcoholism was. And, even though we were kids, we come from a very Irish family where alcohol is, very prevalent, I think, in the culture, right? And it's probably in other cultures as well. But, it's just the Irish alcohol drunk correlations, I think, are real in a lot of ways. But as little kids, I think, God, I don't even know I have to backtrack how old I was. I think I was maybe 8, 9, and I totally nerdy knew. We kind of chuckled at her when she was trying to explain to us what was going on. We're like, we know what's going on. Like, we live with this every day. What are you talking about? And that was him going in that night. So he went in that night, and my brother took him in, and that was his rock bottom. God bless him. He's been phenomenal. For, let's see, his kids are in the 20s, I think for 25 years, and he's been a sponsor and so on, who's been just a great mentor for many, 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 many people. And so anyhow, I don't want to make it all about that, but I just want to say that congratulations on that. Now, quick question for you is, how did you make your first million? For our entrepreneurs out there who would be like, let's talk a little bit about money.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I got introduced to the internet around 96, 97, and literally started designing websites and driving traffic. And, I was chatting with somebody the other day. I'm like, man, I used to sell traffic to Yahoo and Google back in the day. I mean, I was in Silicon Valley. I was a radio air personality. And I was literally trying to figure out the whole internet game while working as a radio air personality on the night, the graveyard shift. And so we started a supplement company, and like this one, 2001, and literally just making money around providing services and value to our clients, who ultimately then take our stuff and white label it and ship it and sell it to their customers. So I made it in the supplement industry. That was how I did it early on, and we're going strong, celebrating 15 years coming up in just a couple months.
How did you do any direct to consumer in the beginning, or?
We tried and we failed miserably.
Wow.
So we tried the offers, and that was not my game. Like, I love the copy. I love the whole idea of driving traffic and spam. I'm just going to make this clarification. We've never hit the send button. But let's just say like I wrote some checks, and early on, we did some things, and then I think as you grow and you mature, you kind of change your ethics and kind of your integrity and where you're at. So we were never really successful on the offer side ourselves. We were always good at supplying people products and services for running those offers.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, you found your sweet spot.
No, now, like reading over your bio and kind of knowing a little bit about you, I see that, a half a, million bottles of Marine D3. I mean, you want to talk about it. I mean, we're doing business together, but the great thing about you and me is we're just running in a lot of similar circles, so we've gotten the opportunity at various events. We know a lot of the same people. And I mean, your story's so dynamic and unique. And for the audience listening, to this show, who are like, who's Ed? Can you give us a little bit of your background, kind of just bring us up to speed where you're at today and all the great things you're working on? I know there's a book in the works, The Art of Time Collapsing.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of glimpse into your kind of where you're at and what you're doing, and then go ahead into that family of 7 under 11. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, I'll get to that too. Yeah, so I grew up in an awesome family on the south side of Chicago. I'm the 12th of 13 children. Grew up thinking I was going to be an electrician or do some kind of trade because that was my family, right? That's what we do. And even though I was driving my mom, who's 83 years old, last night to my daughter's volleyball game, and we were talking about how, the unions and my family going through the unions has been very, very good to my family. And I know things are transitioning now. And it's funny being more on the entrepreneurial side and having a different perspective on a lot of things. Anyhow, I don't need to go into that, but it's just it's kind of cool. I live in a cool neighborhood in the sense that you have blue collar, you have white collar, you have black, you have white, you have a diversity, and it's cool because we're still in the city. So we, I think it gives me some different perspectives. I went away and played volleyball in college. I was very lucky and fortunate at that time. 4-year captain. I did very well. Playing, but I always loved coaching. So even though I got my degree in nursing, I decided to not go into nursing because I got this, entrepreneurship bug, and I wanted to have flexibility to coach. At that time, I really wanted to take my coaching to the highest levels. But then I looked at that lifestyle and I was like, I think coaching juniors, and we've been to the national championship. We've had plenty of teams in the top 10 in the country, and I've been really blessed to coach a lot of high-level athletes. And it's so fun to now, as to bring it full circle, is on the family front, I have my daughter who's 11 years old. I'm coaching her team now, and man, I'll tell you, I've really been around some high-level athletes and had just a real great blessing, and that's what I do at the Ed O'Keefe Show, is to take people behind the scenes of greatness, because I love going behind the scenes in the mindset of like high performers. And my good friend Lloyd Irvin asked me yesterday, or a couple days ago, he said, well, are you ensuring that your daughter's getting the highest level of coaching? And I chuckled and I sent a text back to him. I said, yeah, I'm coaching her. And the same stuff that's being taught at the highest levels, she is getting at the age of 10 and 11, and my son, they're all going to get super high level coaching, because my belief system on this stuff right here is that when you coach a sport, the fundamental system and training you teach at the youngest levels is probably more important, and it requires higher level skills than to go and coach 18, 19-year-olds, and because you're just game managing at that point and micro improving. So you can tell by how I went on a tangent there how much I love coaching and being around high-level performers. After college, I went down the road of trying to be a motivational speaker. I thought I was going to be the next Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield, who's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. After being broke for 3 to 4 years, learning. The beauty about being broke is I was able to go study, and I had no responsibility. So, how you brought up the selfish thing? There's that balance when you're in your 20s, and I would say even early 30s, where you're out there hunting and gathering. So there has to be some positive selfishness, because you have to, kind of figure out your correct path. And then around 25 is when I discovered direct response marketing. And that's the first time I realized that I could do some advertising or write good, compelling sales copy. And all of a sudden I got an email with an order. And I tell you, man, like an order came in, just for the people listening. And from that day forward, I got it. I was like, okay, I have to go in this direction, because when I take actions, I can see a correlation between my actions and making money. And since then, I went into the dental profession, which is kind of crazy, and I had one of the largest coaching and marketing coaching programs for dentists for about 7.5 to 9 years, which then I segued into the health supplement business. And then this health supplement business took me about 1.5 to 2 years to figure out, and I lost a lot of money trying to figure it out. But once we figured it out, we went from 0 to 60 very, very rapidly. And that's been going strong for about 7.5 years. And I also lead a mentoring and coaching program for guys in the health business, in the info side, product side. So that kind of brings us full circle. And yes, my wife and I have 7 kids, all under the age of 11. We love it. And it's one of the main reasons why I love doing the podcasting and direct response marketing, because it kind of really affords the ability to provide valuable content or valuable products and be very, very leveraged, online.
Very cool. While we're on the subject, the Ed O'Keefe Show, is it just EdO'KeefeShow.com?
Yeah, EdO'KeefeShow.com. And it's a little clunky, and we're figuring it out. We're learning this as we go, but I have some phenomenal people up there. You do.
I mean, I was glancing on it this morning. I mean, like I said earlier, we know each other, but it's always interesting. I have a hard time writing anything about myself.
Yeah.
It's easy to, I can share, but I don't want to be this guy. It's like, it's all about me. It's not, man. And just listening to you this morning, it's so interesting. I mean, like nursing, you wanted to go there, and then you're like, okay, no. And I'm going to go into like my family's like in the electric business. And then I'm going to go into like, I'm going to coach. And then I'm going to go coach dentists on how to like, grow their businesses, and How did you finally figure out, like, just settle you did that for 7 to 9 years, like coaching dentists? Like, how did you pick that path?
Yeah, so that's actually has a lot of lessons to it. So I was just kind of stumbling along, and I realized I was in the wrong business, meaning at the time I was teaching volleyball coaches and athletes and the mental toughness training for sports. And I created a few manuals, and I was making more money than I had the previous year, but it still wasn't much. And I saw that guys who were selling how to grow your business stuff in these niche markets, which actually is not uncommon now. It was very rare back then. But they were selling courses for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. I think a big lesson you have to step back and look at is, for the same effort, these people are charging, meaning they wrote sales copy, they learned the skill sets, and the structure of the skill sets are the same. Yet that guy's making 300% more than you are, and he's doing the same time and effort, right? It's the whole like, well, Bill Gates only has 24 hours in the day like you do, right? So how do you become more leveraged? And so for me, I discovered I was in the wrong business. And so I followed the trail to doing the market research, licensing the rights to sell a product of someone else's that had done something similar. And, it wasn't easy peasy overnight, and it had its grind, but it was, it definitely was the beginning of the transformation, And I remember, by the way, let me just say this first. I just got done interviewing Jesse Itzler, who wrote the book Living with a Seal, and I just thought he was an author. But when I started deep diving into his thing, he and a friend, they were in the music industry, and they had this idea of renting private jets rather than selling, people were selling private jets, but they like to fly private, but they weren't going to buy one. And they were like, man, wouldn't it be cool if someone just rented these private jets? And all this, So he and his friend started the company called Marquee Private Jets, where all these musicians that he knew and all these athletes that he knew were able to rent a private jet for 24 hours, and they never had to buy one. And so they had to go pitch it to the company that was selling private jets. And at first they got kicked out of the first pitch meeting, but then they were asked to come back, And I was actually thinking about this morning, Tony, because I was like, who am I like one relationship away from that if I provided enormous value with the existing skill sets that I have or the connections that I have, can create that kind of leverage that they did? Because that's all they did. They figured out an idea. They knew he was one connection away from the guy. He pulled a favor, and by going in that market, they were capable of. They sold the business for, I think it was like $700 million to Berkshire Hathaway, one of Warren Buffett's companies, bought them. And so, here's normal guys doing normal things, but they're thinking differently. And so the dental thing was, I didn't know anything about dentistry. I didn't know anything about how to grow a dental practice, but I just leapt into it, and I figured it out as we moved along. And I think that is part of the recipe for success. I think that is the recipe for success, real big success, by the way.
No, and I'm right there with you. I mean, the most important thing is to get started and test along the way and figure out exactly. I mean, I didn't have a perfect philosophy when we got started in our business in 2001. We started ship offers with $5,000.
Nice.
We didn't even have a product, man. We just said, hey, you know what we were doing was great, but like, let's transition. And this is my second, supplement company, and we had died a miserable death in the .com boom. We had a huge opportunity. I mean, we were featured on 2020, and we had everything going for us, and then this thing just crashed right in front of us. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I wasn't done. I was like, this is just the beginning. What did we learn from this? And literally, it took us into where we're at today. And like I said, starting with $5,000. We started a company. I mean, we went to IKEA and bought the cheapest furniture. We got a building, and we placed orders. And, as you were saying, like, how did you make your first millions? I mean, wholesale. I mean, we were driving people to a marketplace, and we were scrambling for product. I mean, it was like we couldn't fill the orders fast enough. People were buying stuff, and we were slapping a label on it, and we were shipping it to these guys. And so it's so interesting because all you have to do in life is start with an idea. Learn from there, and then apply it to whatever else you want to try, and then keep going. And I think, it's a great transition into where you're at today as a successful entrepreneur. I mean, I was looking at your stuff. I mean, you've done so much, and you've helped so many people. And now all of a sudden, it's like, hey, I'm going to go write a book, right? The Art of Time Collapsing. And I love the title, how to get what you want faster than you ever thought. And so what I thought I would do is like, can you just share a little bit about how you even came up with the title, but how you became a master at time collapsing?
Yeah, so funny is the original title was Embracing the Grind, and because I feel like nothing I've done in my previous businesses has come easy to me, and the difference between myself and those around me is I just grind through things, and I've noticed that as a characteristics of the, like there's a book I read called Mastery with Tim Perry, and he says, that all success is found on the last third of the mile. And I thought, that totally sums up my like existence, right? I look at some guys and I'm like, man, they have it so much easier. Some of my buddies that I've seen that are financially free, like it seems like some of them figured out hacks or ways to do it, and timing worked perfectly, and bam, they made millions and millions and millions in a very short amount of time. Now, not a lot, but a few that had happened. But predominantly, it's guys who grind it out. And so when I was on a conference call, actually with Tucker Max, he was one of the guys because he had been a bestseller, and he was kind of like, what the fuck is this? Sorry for swearing, but he's like, what is this? This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I got pissed. I was like, kind of F you, it's about, and I was trying to articulate it like, well, it's about like frickin' leapfrogging. It's about time collapsing. And that I said that out loud. And I left that meeting pissed. I'll be honest with you. Like, I stopped working with his company. I was like, you guys are a bunch of idiots. But the small favor that he did give me that day was it pissed me off enough for me to sit there and think about, well, what is this really about? And grinding through things is something that I think is a characteristic of accomplishing your goals at rapid speeds. But people, if you look around, grind usually on the wrong path.
Yep.
And so the title does not clarify that. So grind, embrace the grind. Just you may think it means it's just saying 9 to 5 you're supposed to, or 12 hours a day you're supposed to, blah blah blah. Well, that's not at all what I was supposed to say, because the second chapter of my book is called The Trap. And so I'll break this down just in three quick chunks just for everybody. And where time collapsing came is the people that leap to the top and who make there are people out there who can are what I call magicians. And I feel we all have this. I think we all have this capability, where the first step is they see the trap of how society operates, and they're like, oh man, screw the trap, I'm done with it. And the trap that I explain in the book is how we are trained very, very young to think sequentially, like kindergarten to first grade to second grade, and it sequentially goes all the way up even through college. And there's this false illusion that because you have a degree, or because you went through this fundamentally average educational system, you are now qualified to go become successful, when quite frankly all of that just designed you to be ready to fall into more traps, meaning go get a job, go buy a house, go get a car, go get married, go wake up, you're 32, now you have a spouse you don't like, a job you don't like, a debt you don't need or you didn't want, and all of a sudden you're like, wow. Everyone tells you, well, if you start investing $100 at the age of 21, you're going to be a millionaire by the age of 50. Well, who does that, right? It's such a rare amount of people that do that. And so the first when I was 23, I think what happened to me, Tony, is I started, my wake up was listening to audio tapes of, Brian Tracy and Chicken Soup for the Soul and Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Zig Ziglar. You can do whatever you want in life and you can go out and achieve it. And I was like, oh, cool. Now, the problem with a lot of those things is they didn't give us strategies and tactics to actually do it. And that's where our marketing and sales came in. So now there's a success trap and there's the selfishness trap. There's other traps that do occur. So I'm not going to go into all of them here. But I call it, there's a trap. We become gold seekers, meaning we start chasing, right? And there's a little bit of that hunting and gathering that I think is very natural, instinctive at our core levels, which is required to function and to create value. A lot of kids are told, well, money's not important, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can't serve a bigger purpose if you don't know how to monetize value. I mean, I was thinking about, the people with the Powerball, who's going to win the billion. And I really said a prayer. I said, God, whoever you give that money to, please make it to somebody who can serve a better purpose with it. Not just some schlep who's going to lose it and everyone's going to look at him at the tabloids, right? Anyhow, I don't want to go down.
On that real quick. So
yeah, go for it, because I'm going to grab it. Take a sip.
Facebook the other day, somebody said, for the $5 you're going to invest in the Powerball, why don't you spend it on a book? Some good book to help you build your business. Or some motivational CD, something to help you, because the odds of winning are slim. But I am right there with you on your prayer. I think whoever wins, put it into the good, and don't I'm not one of these guys. My wife and I have sat around. I think anybody would for a few minutes at least fantasize. What would you do with 300-400 million? And my thought this morning driving in is, why don't I just go make it?
Yeah,
go make the money instead of being the one who's well, if I had this dream.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And here's the other thing. The lady at CVS asked me the question, what would you do if you made it? I go, my life wouldn't change much, man. And so part of writing this book in the last few years is I kind of really looked at my life and I was like, man, I thought by age, I'm 40 now, I thought I'd have more money invested away. I thought I would, like there's certain like life goals that I thought I would. And I think that was the trap. Like I was like, man, those were all disillusionments based on this false chasing energy that really sets you up for like misleading you. And so when you step back and look at your life and you're like, all right, man, if you're not saying I feel really wealthy now, that's a different issue. And so in my book, Tony, just to kind of give you the time collapsing, the two main premises that I talk about are the leapfrog theory, which is that in any given market, industry, profession, even when I coach athletes and I work with high-level people, there's a lot of questions you can ask, but to reframe their thinking to be like, well, what would it take to get you into the 1% to 2% range right now or in the next 90 days? And instead of going through this arduous, long, sequential pattern of thinking, how can we leap there? And usually, like in business, it's usually a matter of relationships, highly leveraged systems, licensing, acquiring things. Actually, not even. Nowadays the big companies can get taken out by people who go very small. And even in Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel is one of the co-founders of PayPal and has one of the largest hedge funds in the world and invests in a lot of businesses. If you go read that book, one of the things you'll figure out is that Elon Musk and him, they really struggled for a very long time trying to figure out how to make PayPal work. And they actually dialed it down to a group of 20,000, a market the size of 20,000 people. And one of the things they figured out was if we can dominate this market, then we can take this throughout the whole world. And I don't think people, that really raised my eyebrow. I was like, man, these guys penetrated in the right spot, and because of it, they were able to accelerate time. So I talk about leapfrogging as one. You don't have any you don't need permission. You don't need approval from anyone. And in our society, if you can start dropping those kind of permission-based things that we also get lured into in the trap phase of our life, then
real quick, yeah. I don't know where that gets instilled, because I look at my mom, and my mom never instilled that in me. And I've been trying to go back. Like, is it through coaching? Is it through the teachers that I had that weren't my parents? Like, where did that happen? Because I know our society, we've talked about it, like, hey, go to school, get good grades, go meet somebody, go get married. Like, I didn't have the white picket fence fantasy growing up, man. My mom was a single parent. My parents split when I was 3 months old. I grew up with, my father was gay. I grew up with like very diverse, like interesting kind of like sections of my life. As a kid, I'm like, I never had this programming. Where did this programming get implemented into our society? Because it has to be stopped. And that's the trap, man.
So I have one, my son comes home with the coolest freaking like little short story he wrote. Yeah, the only thing I see on the paper are red marks because of his spelling. And I'm like, dude, this is the coolest freaking story. And I explained to him that your dad's wrote 3 books. I write for a living. I have editors. And while spelling is important for some at a certain level, what I'm most proud of you is this story that came out.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, but I think in life, like, so what I do is I go into that kind of, and so where I think a lot of books being really well read, and why I like doing the show and reviewing books is a lot of books give people a lot of false hope without the tangible, like, okay, so this is how you can backtrack how to make $1 million. Well, but here's the skill set you need to learn, and how do you identify those? And then how do you apply accelerated learning? And how do you identify your own superpower? And then how do you network properly? So what's taken me so long about this book is I try my best to give my best stuff about those things that I know, and share a lot of cool stories in it. So that's kind of where I'm at, man. Yeah, I think people will love it if my articulation of these philosophies gets shared properly.
No, you've shared, and I got a glimpse a little bit. We were chatting, around the Christmas break or whatnot, and I was reading. It's very cool. I mean, it's interesting. I want to dial back just to kind of the trap mentality and the philosophy, because the education piece is huge for me, coming from a mom who taught special education for almost 30 years. When I went off to college, I didn't have great grades in high school, and I got to go play water polo in college at a community college. And one day I was walking to a class, and I passed a radio station on campus, and I walked in and I said, hey, how do I get into this class? And they're like, you gotta go take all these other classes. I'm like, to talk? Like, I didn't talk until I was 4. I think I've already got that class figured out, because now I can't shut up. And so the teacher came out and started talking to me, and they said, yeah, you have to take these classes. I said, let me make you a deal. I said, you give me a shot on your radio station, and if I don't, level up or get to the level you believe I should be, then I'll go down and take the next class that you recommend. She said, great. I was the only radio air personality in the entire program that semester to get a real job at a real radio station. And so my thing and my whole trap is like, don't let something stop you from deep down inside of what you want to become in life. Don't let any obstacle, don't let anybody erase your dream. And I'm so glad you talked about the time collapsing and leapfrogging and all that, because I think it's so important, is that you can get anything you want. We are only a couple people away from the people we want to meet. I have 3 people I want to interview this year, and I'm going to throw it out there because I think it's important for me. So Gary Vee. Yeah. I'd love to interview Bob Proctor, and I'd love to have an opportunity to meet Mark Cuban and interview him. So those are 3 people on my bucket list for 2016 for podcast shows.
Would you say Bob Proctor?
Yeah, Bob Proctor, the guy who part of The Secret.
Yeah, Bob's easy to. Yeah, he's pretty responsive, bro.
No, he is, and so here yesterday I'm talking.
I shouldn't say he's easy, but like he's a guy who's responsive. I think you're nailing that. And Gary Vee, that's a done deal. So how do you get to Cuban, right?
Yeah, so Cuban's been on my list for 2 years. And so what I realized yesterday was I was talking to my buddy Jeff, who I just interviewed on my show. He's got like 28 years in direct sales. And so we were talking, we were kind of catching up after the show had aired. And he's like, dude, I'll get you an intro into somebody who gets you an intro. I mean, if you want something bad enough, who are you asking today? Like, use your network and go out and actually, meet the people that you want to meet. And I'm not afraid to hear no. Like, I reached out to Darren Hardy through a tweet. I'm like, hey, dude, I want to get you on the show. Like, that's just me, and I'm like not afraid to like learn from the experience of failure. I'm like, that's where I learn, man. If something doesn't work, I'm gonna flip the script and I'm gonna figure out how to apply what I learned and how to get what I want out of life.
Totally, man. Totally.
My mom says it best. You only get one time around the track. That's it, man. So like, do everything that you possibly want to do in life, and don't allow anybody or anything to get in your way. Period.
So Tony, let me ask you a question. How would you describe your superpower? What is your superpower?
I think there's one big thing for me, 2 parts though. I love people today, and I'm a huge networker. So like, superpower for me is I love helping people get what they want out of life, and I'll get everything I need. And so for me, I'm a people connector. So like, sharing with you what I really want out of life is easy on paper, difficult for me sometimes to speak, because I don't want it to be about me. I'd much rather make it about Ed.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm working on is, it's easy for me to give you advice, Ed.
Yeah.
It's somewhat difficult for me to take that advice and put it into play.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's some guys that are superpower is building teams and executing as well, man. I mean, I think I think it's why God put so many different types of people on this planet.
I'm a huge motivator. I love taking somebody who's struggling and pulling them to the side and asking them, like, what are you trying to achieve? What do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then helping to lay out a path for them to take their journey. I mean, we're all on the same road. We're just at different places. We're all going there. I'm not above or below. I'm right with you. I may be a few steps behind you or a few steps in front of you, but I'm with you.
Yeah. Here's a question. What is the first story that comes to mind when I ask you, what is the most mentally tough thing in your life that you have overcome?
Ooh. So I said it 7.5 years ago. I'll still say it today. I spent a lifetime trying to look good to avoid looking bad. It's exactly the walk that allowed me to say, hey, I'm an alcoholic and I need help today and I can't do it on my own. Those things, once I got clear that I had the phenomenon of craving, I'm the guy who can't have one Pringle. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I can't have one of anything. I need a lot. And so once I was able to realize that is the biggest obstacle and challenge that I face in my life today. And since then, I think my wife and I were driving home from dinner last night, and we had talked about moving into a bigger house and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And last night, and I held her hand and I said, I'm so happy where we're at today.
Yeah, that's cool, dude.
And it never was like that because I don't know about you if you've ever done this. So like you buy something and your wife looks at you, well, I want something, or like, hey, what do you want? And I had done that for a long period of time early on as newlyweds. And my wife, man, God bless her, she is an amazing woman with a huge heart who has put up with a lot of my BS and my crap, who today is my best friend. She walks with me, finishes my sentences. After 17 plus years of marriage, I think we're getting better. I hate using this saying, but we're like a fine bottle of wine. We're getting better with age. We are getting better together. And so my challenges was once I got out of self, I could get into her heart and I could help another human being, and my whole life changed once I made that decision. So that whole clarification, try to stop looking good, man, to avoid looking bad. I mean, I was like, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a thing that's interesting. You were able to actually articulate it probably better than many of us, because I think, I think especially in the late teens and 20s, how much time do we spend in front of the mirror? And that could be metaphorically, right?
Sure. I mean, at 20 years old, I stood right in the mirror and I looked at myself. I was drunk. I mean, I'm 20 years and I'm like, dude, is this what your life's going to be? Is this what you really, really, really want the rest of your life to be? And I mean, I can't tell you how many of these self-conversations that I've had over the years. And then when you make the decision, right? See, I think life is about making the decision and then like learning from whatever you truly decide to do. I mean, I believe it. Like, I think you're going to be presented with thousands of opportunities and you have to make the decision, like which one's right for you. And so today in my life, I have a pillar of people who like take a stand for me and who are there to allow me. If it's you, if it's Vinny Fisher, if it's my pastor, if it's a couple of my mentors, if it's my wife, if it's my kids, like I say today, like, is this wise? Is this the right thing for me to do? And I may, in almost every situation, open up my phone book and go, okay, I'm calling Ed. Like, hey, Ed, this is my situation. What do you think, bro? And you'd be like, here's what I would do. And then I go back to the drawing board. I'm like, okay, yeah, he said exactly what I thought I should do. But I'm glad that I checked because my old behavior is basically still right there. And so that 20-year-old mentality guy is still here. I'm with him every single day. It's just that I put some time in between those mess ups.
Yeah. Now I'll share with you real quick. Like one of the interesting things about, like you're talking about networking and relationships, right? So I'm at a phase in my life where I am looking for deeper relationships with, so when I look at my year, so this year is 2016. I realized I was in a lot of the same masterminds. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with certain masterminds. Not because of them, but because of me. And so I'm hitching my wagon, like Mark Devine at Seal Fit.
Sure.
He launched a mastermind. And I'm like, all right, this is really interesting, like a coaching club. And he's been a man who I want to be more like, not in the sense of like I need to be Commander Mark Devine. Not at all like that. He has a lot of the attributes that I really, really admire. So it's more of man, I want to, I believe that the secret to feeling better when you feel like crap is you put yourself in an environment where those people already feel better. So what I mean by that is like, if I don't feel like working out, that's the exact reason why I need to get my butt to my class where all of my classmates are ready to work out. because my body and like by osmosis, things will just kick right in. Whereas I think human nature is to just avoid that discomfort.
Oh yeah, so like I call that for me rat brain. Like in my head, man, I can stay in bed all day long, or I can get out and play the game. And it's hard for me though. So I get that. Let me ask you real quick, and then I'm gonna let you finish that thought.
Yeah.
Mastermind. So you're talking a lot about SEAL Fit and exercise and all the stuff. What were you doing last year? What were you preparing for, and then what have you been able to transition to in this year? And then let's segue back into your coaching topic, where you were talking about getting into SEAL Fit and the coaching and all that stuff and masterminds.
So last year at this time, I wasn't preparing for anything. I was just going to class, and do my CrossFit class once a day, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, and I was in good shape comparatively. But it wasn't until August that my wife and I were out in Colorado in the mountains that we were talking. And the backstory on this is that I brought up to her 2 years ago that I wanted to do the 51-hour Navy SEAL mini Hell Week camp that Commander Mark Devine at SEALFit.com has created. And he created that as a way to prepare people going into the special forces, whether it's Navy SEALs or Delta or Rangers or whatever it might be. And that his graduation rate of guys who graduate Kokoro camp, the graduation rate of those who graduate who go into BUDS, which is the Navy SEAL Hell Week, and then I think there's the courses. I think it's 8 weeks, and they go into they have a couple of different indocs or indoctrinations, and so I don't know how to articulate all of them in a short amount of time. But Hell Week is really where they flush people out of the system very, very rapidly, and so a couple years ago I was watching a YouTube video with my son in the basement, Michael, and it was of all these CrossFit pro athletes doing Kokoro camp. And for anyone who's listening, they could go on YouTube and just type in KOKORO camp, Kokoro camp, which means I think heart and spirit is one. And you'll see the rigorous training. And when I first saw that, it scared me, like really scared me. And it probably scared me up until I was in it, And then around this, so go fast forward. The first time I brought it up to my wife, she was pregnant with our twins, and I was like, well, something I like for my 39th birthday or 38th, I don't even know what it was, is Kokoro camp. And so she started crying, like, you're going to go die, and I'm having these babies. And fast forward a year and a half, we are in Colorado. Kids are now older. Life has stabilized a little bit. And I brought it up to her again, and she said to me, if you want to do it, I support you 100%. And so I signed up that day. And I was scared, man. I mean, I was really, I think that was part of my driving focus. And I had signed up for the February, which was 6 months away. And after a month of training, I decided to go to the October one, which then gave me 4 more weeks. So it gave me 2 months total of prep work on top of my base that I already had. Does that are you with me?
No, it totally makes sense. I mean, the interesting part is, like, one, you watch the video and you're scared all the way up until the point, and then you're like, there. What did you gain from that experience, right? Because I want to get back to your mastermind with kind of the people and kind of like some of the same circles we run in. It's not like masterminds are bad. But what did you gain? What was the takeaway from that experience? What was the biggest aha that you walked away from?
Yeah. So if you've ever had a chance to, there's a couple books that Mark Devine has written, The Way of the SEAL and Unbeatable Mind, and he has a lot of videos. I'm members to SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind. And he was a guy who was the number one in his Navy SEAL Hell Week class or whatever, there's class. And he was known as Cyborg, meaning he was able to do arduous physical activity for hours and hours and hours and hours. And without it really seeming to affect him like it did other people. And if you read part of my accelerated learning training when I tell people about modeling is that if you're going to pick a mentor, you need to be very literal. So like if he says that box breathing works, meaning I inhale for 4 seconds, I hold it for 4 seconds, I exhale for 4 seconds, I hold it for 4 seconds, and I inhale. And by doing that, I could actually control my heart rate and I could stave off cold water, what is hypothermia. And if I smile when I'm in rigorous activities, they're easier. If I say to myself things like, I got this, easy day, not a problem, nothing but a thing, I'm a warrior. If I create my mental mind gym, and if I start taking all those little micro principles that he has, and I say, you know what, Tony, let's pretend like those are 1,000% legitimate, right? Then let me test this shit out. Like, let's go to the nth degree where I put myself in the most rigorous environment, and we'll see how this stuff plays out. Now, I wasn't like trying to see if he's right or wrong. That wasn't my point. My point was I believed in him, and I was like, I'm gonna have faith that this system works, and I'm gonna have faith that my job is to get my body to the point where the baseline physical stuff is stuff that I can handle. And so when I walked into Kokoro camp, I had like 3 little micro goals. Number 1, I was going to be an impeccable leader. That doesn't mean I was a perfect leader. That means I did my best at all times to lead by example and by encouragement. I was going to have unbreakable optimism, right? Where irregardless of the stuff we were in, I was going to be optimistic. And number 3, I was going to smile my way through it no matter what. Close all doors to quitting, and those were things. Because when I started reading the books of like the other Navy SEALs, and the Bud stuff like Marcus Luttrell's and stuff like that, what you'll soon find is that there's certain patterns that they all have. Number 1, they all figured out that just staying very present is a secret. Number 2 is micro goals is the secret. Number 3 is that you have to have perspective in life. So you're lying in this cold, muddy water, and you think for a moment that you're actually cold. Well, guess what? There's people that are homeless sitting out in weather somewhere that is. So having that perspective that it could be worse.
Sure.
And that breath control is secret. Like a lot of those things. So I went through Kokoro camp with a great group of people, with great coaches. I was amazed at the phenomenal men and women I was around. And so leaving that experience, I think it's hard because you're in such an environment that's so intense, so incredibly intense. I'll tell you one thing. You asked me about my 7 kids. Having so many kids actually prepared me easily for like the chaos, because the chaos didn't bother me at all. It was easy day. Like that was easy. None of the yelling bothered me. Like the confusion parts, that didn't bother. None of that shit bothered me. So sure. None of that bothered me. But coming off now, looking forward, like I just want, like, there's men that are out there and women, but I'm a man. I'm 40 years old. I want to be around good men because being a leader of my family, being a great role model, and being a great spouse. I feel I've been around some really good high level people, and I'm also just ready to take it up a notch. And so when I see people doing it what I would call right, and I don't mean it by a judgment, but they seem like they're figuring out a few things at a core sustainable level. And so what I mean by that is when you study internet marketing, you have so much distraction because there's so much BS that's being sent out of like, oh, I hacked this new way to generate 100,000 views on YouTube. Well, that doesn't mean crap, because that guy does not have a real business. He's never had a business. He's selling ice to Eskimos, and he's hoping to just keep everyone confused for the next 10 years, and hopefully he makes enough money. I don't want to be around guys like that. I want to be around guys that are designing their businesses with real value, who are leading their life from a set of core principles that they've determined through experience that work for them. We don't have to have the same ones, but I want to be around guys that have foundation and depth. Because those are the types of guys that when, Coach or Commander Divine would talk about, you got to know why you're going to go do a 51-hour nonstop, no sleep, eat MREs, get sick, puke, crap, be in the mountains carrying your teammates, like feeling like you got to know why you're doing that. And, if you don't have values and a foundation in real life, you don't really know why you're doing that either. So that's kind of the directional pull I'm pushing myself towards, buddy.
I like it because anybody who talks to me will know this. I don't have time for the BS. It's like, let's get right to the meat of the potatoes. Like, let's get down to everything. So I can't thank you enough for just sharing, being authentic, being real, because I think it's so important in today. Like, anybody can join a mastermind. You just need money. And some people check where you came from and have you ever made money selling online, blah, 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 blah. I mean, for me, any relationship that I take on today, I want to get to know the person, but I don't want to be told the story. So a lot of the times when we're talking, I'll say, hey, just take the story out of the story. Just tell me the facts, man. Tell me where you're at, what you want, and see if I can help you. And so I thank you for coming on today. Allow the opportunity for a dual podcast. It's going to be the longest episode I've ever aired. I'll have a few bleeps, but you know what? That's what life is about the opportunity to grow. And I certainly have enjoyed my time today with you, Ed. I think it's cool when you get the opportunity to sit down and interview somebody such as Ed. I mean, from being a best-selling author, father of 7 under 11, sold 500,000 bottles of Marine D3, from fit, all the stuff that you've been doing, writing a book, volleyball coach, mother, author. I mean, dude, you're the bomb. You're the
You're the
real thing. And I just want to say thanks. I mean, I love the opportunity as anytime I get to spend with you. And I was with you right before you took off. We were in Cleveland at Vinny Fisher's event, Strategy and Execution Summit. And, I was handing you some powders as you were walking out, and I'm like,
healthy powders, everybody.
I'm like, you need some supplements for you. I mean, guys fit too, by the way, people. So thanks, Ed, for allowing me the opportunity to interview this afternoon. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with today? Any last thing that, like, hey, here's Ed, this is one little tidbit for the day?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, so right now I'm doing a 31-day challenge. I'm following the Jesse Itzler, the guy with Living with the Seal. We're doing 2016 push-ups, burpees, body squats, sit-ups, and dips. It breaks down about 65 of all those movements a day. I'm doing that on top of my workout class. And here's what I want to talk about. Everything is easy in sets of 5. So wherever you're at in life, whether it's business, whether it's trying to learn copywriting, trying to learn media buying, trying to get your business off the ground, whether you're an athlete, whether you're trying to get into fitness or take it to the next level, it's all easy in micro chunks. Everything is easy. There's nothing that is not easy in the present moment when you chunk it down to being the most micro unit possible. And you can take something, if you want to be, just like I said in the whole PayPal thing, focus on the small, it will grow into the big. So whatever that is for you, figure it out, what's important to you. And it's okay to suck and to be awful and to be embarrassing internally at first, because we are all there. So that's that. And then I'm going to throw it back at you, Tony. What would be the walk-away talking point that you would like to share to my listeners and your listeners?
It's great, man. Well, thanks, for allowing me to have the opportunity to spend some time with you and your audience as well. I think my biggest takeaway, man, is you can become anything you want to be. There's no obstacle that you can't get through. It's the excuses that you have to work on, what you tell yourself and who you talk to. And reach out, seek for the help that you need, no matter where you're at in your life. We all can become more by becoming better and surrounding ourselves with people of integrity, people who at the end of the day will take a stand for you. So that's really where I'm at in my life, in my process right now. I totally relate with where you came from, that space of increments of 5. I mean, as you were talking all about your fitness, I was sitting here doing dips on my chair.
Nice.
I better stop because I'm going to be out of breath. But you're inspiring, you're motivating. Thank you for the day, the opportunity. And guys, until next time, it's Tony G, and that's Ed O'Keefe, and that'll wrap up this show.
All right, thanks, brother. This episode is sponsored by Marine D3. If you want 24-hour antioxidant protection while giving your brain, eyes, heart, and overall energy a jolt of long-lasting nourishment, then Marine D3 is for you. This is my #1 top-selling health product that I've sold over 500,000 bottles And right now, 80% of our sales come from repeat customers. Marine D3 can flood your cells with an abundance of new antioxidants and nutrients that fights and repairs damage done to the cells during exercise, everyday living, and the natural breakdown that occurs as we age. After 15 years of research and over $39 million spent on clinical studies, a renowned biochemist has found one of the world's greatest antioxidants. It's called CNLP, hiding deep below the ocean surface. I took CNLP, combined it with a little-known omega-3 called calamine, as well as vitamin D3, so that you can get maximum benefit all in one supplement. I'd like to give you the first bottle absolutely free. I just ask that you pay shipping and handling. At EdO'KeefeShow.com/free bottle, I'll have a mini presentation that will share more about the supplement and why people are raving about it. Most importantly, it'll show you exactly how you can get it shipped out to you today, just for shipping and handling. This episode is brought to you by Dormant Forces Insider. If you would like monthly big business breakthroughs, insider marketing strategies that actually work, and mindset secrets of multimillionaires sent directly to your door so you can have them in your hands and you can apply them, then this is for you. Now, you can test drive my Dormant Forces Insider Silver membership for just 1 month free. If you love it, we know you'll stay with it and let it keep you in the loop of what's working inside my businesses and the other dozens and dozens of businesses that I mentor. Why would you go at it all on your own when you can use other people's experience than just replicate what works? Anyhow, right now you can test drive the membership for just $1 plus a few bucks shipping and handling by going to EdO'KeefeShow.com/dormant forces. That's EdO'KeefeShow.com/dormant forces.